Welcome to this podcast, Making Me Thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is episode 63. Our guest today is a graduate of Yale University and a veteran actor. You've known him from 100 different productions, including Sorry for Your Loss, Mom, Vice, Justified, and of course, as Jerry's high school nemesis, Duncan Meyer, in the classic season 6 Seinfeld episode, The Race. Please welcome Don McManus. Don, thanks for joining.
Hey guys, nice to be here.
It starts with Don McManus. Welcome to this podcast, Make Me Thirsty. It's truly an honor. So Don, take us back. I mean, we just mentioned this off air. It was 27 years ago, December of '94. Huge year for you, by the way. Shawshank Redemption, Seinfeld. How'd the role of Duncan Meyer come about? Was there an audition? Tell us a little bit about the process.
There was an audition. Have people talked about what Seinfeld auditions were like back in the day?
Yeah,
we've heard a few, but we love to
hear
a
little different.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Because I auditioned for the show, I don't know, like 4 times, maybe, ballpark there. And what you did was you went to this building, I think was on or adjacent to the CBS Radford lot in the Valley. And there'd be like 4 of you there, and you'd go, and they'd line you up in the hallway. And then the producers and director were inside, writers. And one by one, you'd go in, and then you'd come back out, and you'd sit with these other people, and you'd wait with them, you know? Well, and then when everyone was done, someone would come out and say, and point to one of us, and say, they need to see you in wardrobe. Everyone else, thank you very much. And it was like, oh no. Wow. And so I'd been through that like 3 times of like the see ya. And so I was sitting there I remember sitting there in the hallway going, I don't want to go home again. I don't want to go home again. And they came out, they're like, go to wardrobe. I was like, and then I turned around and I saw on everyone else's face the look that I knew I'd had on my face the last 3 times, you know. Right. But it was a known phenomenon. But I was pleased, first of all, that it was one of the episodes that had Larry David in as Steinbrenner, which is like, you know, that was a real pleasure. I have to say, it was kind of a big year for me. But shortly after maybe a year after we did this episode, my wife and I went on a cruise, the one and only cruise we've ever been on, up through the Interior Passage in Alaska. And we're in, going through the buffet lines and all the rest of it. And she and I kept hearing people calling out, "Hey, Duncan! Hey, Duncan!" Like, did they think I'm someone else? And finally they were like, "You're Duncan Meyer!" And I was like, oh, that's, and the penny finally dropped, but it was, which was, I had a couple of episodes like that around the same time. You mentioned Shawshank Redemption. For several years after that came out, and again, I didn't pick it up at all. People used to walk up to me and go, "I got to pitch a loaf." I'd be like, "Why are you sharing this with me? Why are you saying that?" And of course, it was one of my lines to Tim in the movie. Those were really funny times, and I was a kid too, you know.
Yeah. So when they give you Duncan Meyer, how did you? I mean, you played so well. I mean, Jerry, you know, Newman's Jerry's nemesis, right, throughout the whole series, but no one really captured they play the whole Superman thing off of it, and you hold all the power over him with the girlfriend. You're the boss of his girlfriend, all that kind of stuff. But I'm just curious. We mentioned the audition, but when you actually got the role, where did you go with it in your head as far as like, did you hate Jerry? Were you just so mad that you were faster? Like how did you wrap your head around this? Like, you guys are grown men, but you're gonna re-race something from high school, 20 years later. I mean, it's such a great premise.
I was reminded watching it this time how strongly rhythmic
Mm.
the nature of their comedy is. I mean, it's really language based, and from the my path in was really in the first moment because I was old enough to know what it was like to run into someone from high school,
Right.
and there's that moment that's where it's like Jerry Seinfeld, Duncan Meyer, that horrible thing of like, oh yeah, you son of a bitch, I remember you, and like, and we both managed to put that into just those two words, and
Yes.
I mean, and there it was. We're off to the races already,
Right.
and I have to
And
say,
then yeah, and then you make her stay late that one day. "Ah, you know what? I'm gonna have you stay a little later, just rub it
yeah,
a little bit."
exactly, and I have to say, I just remembered. I was talking to my wife. I was saying I was about to do this with you guys, and at the end of the episode, and Jerry's a really nice man, so maybe he did this with everyone. Um, but at the end of the episode, he thanked me. He said, you really came and played with us, and not everyone does that. Thank you very much." And that just was a lovely thing for him to do. Made me feel really good about what we'd done and what I'd done, and that they'd appreciated it. I just thought that was very decent of him.
Yeah, it's
Nice guy.
great. That is great to hear, actually.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, you mentioned you auditioned multiple times before this, but I tell you, Duncan Meyer is when you think of guest stars, like I don't know, Duncan Meyer's top five. I mean, so what? I guess
Oh,
my question
that's
is,
really sweet. Thank you, man.
what was it? It had to be worth it, right? Like all that rejection and to have this part and just play it to
100%.
such a T.
100%. I mean, this. First of all, the story about the audition is not to slide or diss Seinfeld at all. It's just the nature of the audition process in general can be a little grueling, you
Right.
know. But yes, as you say, absolutely worth it.
So did
Uh,
you I mean, I know it was like over 20 years ago. I'm not sure if you remember the other like what you were auditioning for in the other ones, but was it earlier seasons? Was it like because
Yes,
the race was
was.
okay.
Yeah. It was. I think maybe one earlier in that season, but certainly in previous seasons. Yeah,
Right, yeah. So
which is
you were in
nice.
seasons. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it meant what it meant was that they were trying to find a place for him.
Right, and that's I think they found the right one with Duncan. So
Yeah.
let's get to the scene. We're right before we started really diving in. You had talked about. I mean, we rank it up there with one of the greatest scenes in Seinfeld history, which puts it at one of the greatest scenes in TV history. When George comes in and pretends that and they have the whole thing. I built the Guggenheim edition, and he does the Duncan, and I mean
Yes.
that scene. I mean, how do you keep a straight face during that scene? I mean, how much of that the Duncan lean in, like, was that done right away? Was that played with? I mean, you gotta
Oh
take
yeah.
us through the whole scene. I
Well,
mean, it's
she's
incredible.
incredibly inventive actor. You know, I mean, I heard him from back in New York. He was like he was like doing musical stuff, and he's got a really deep skill set. He's a talented guy, and but you until you watch some of these old episodes, you forget what a wonderfully physical actor he is. And it's like
Yeah.
those like that. He embellished everything. I constantly, which I mean, it wasn't that he was so much that he was commenting on what he was doing because he was always commenting. So that was the nature of his character. You know, boy, he was. I just and I mentioned before we started this, but Jason doing his little imp dance on his toes, his tiptoes at the end of the table, just kills me every time I see it because he's, in addition to being ridiculous, he's adorable. You're, you know, that's his secret weapon. Jason's secret weapon is that he's adorable.
What I watched it again today. I'm like, what was Duncan and Lois's job? Do we even know? Was that ever?
I have no idea.
They don't really
I have
tell
no
you,
idea.
right?
I'm pretty sure they didn't know either.
Right.
Yeah, in keeping with the idea of this is a show about nothing. It's like
Right.
the job was about nothing. So
Yeah, and that episode was packed, right? I mean, you had Renee Props as Lois; she was fantastic. I mean, your chemistry with her as a boss was just spot
yeah.
on. Vicky Lewis, you had Ted Kimsey as Ned. I mean, it was
Like just walks
Mickey's
through.
in that episode. Yeah.
Yeah, Mickey's in that episode, but Vicky Lewis was like there for a heartbeat and gone. And I was like, that's all Vicky's got? That can't be right.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit. So you were on this? I guess this was a week filming. You were on set the whole time. I mean, tell us a little bit about. I know you mentioned Larry David. It was great that he did the Steinbrenner stuff, but he also wrote this along with Tom Gamble and Max Pross.
Right.
So how involved? We hear a lot about Larry David. He's heavily involved. Was it everything that you expected as far as him being running the show?
Well, I mean, he was very heavily involved, but he wouldn't be dealing with a guest star at all. He was dealing with the writers and with Jerry. But I love the way he crafted the Steinbrenner character, because it's almost a precursor to Curb Your Enthusiasm. He's just he doesn't know when to stop talking. I mean, it's like that's the running gag of George trying to back his way out of every conversation he's ever had with George at Steinbrenner. So that was great. One of my favorite things that happened in the episode, because obviously I was a fan of the show, by the time I was on it. Michael Richards, like stutter step entrances into all the scenes,
Right.
which I sort of thought, okay, that's like a physical thing he's got. While we were rehearsing, I'd see out of the corner of my eye like this frantic movement on the corner of the soundstage, and I'd look over, and Michael would be like in a corner of the soundstage, like so, and like practicing the entrance, like getting the moves down.
Wow.
Like that, because to me they were interchangeable.
Right.
That was like a Kramer entrance. Not the case to him. To him, every one of those clearly was separately crafted.
Wow. Yeah, and you're not the first to tell us that. We heard that a couple other people had said they'd seen him practicing that move. It's interesting.
Yeah, and it was. And I was
This
like,
is 6 seasons in. He's still practicing that move.
6 seasons, absolutely. Anyone else would have just been like, yeah, I'll do one of those, But no, it was important to him, and he. Frankly, I was really impressed by that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's incredible dedication. The essence of the show to us is, it's two grown men, George and Jerry, who just never really grow up, right? They're immature. They're not men. A lot of lines are about that theme, and the race when you guys are about to race, and Mr. Bevilacqua gives you the instructions, and you both are like, "Yes, Mr. Bevilacqua," like you're still kids in school. When you both deliver those lines, it's like captures the whole show. You're just like, "Yes, Mr. Bevilacqua," like listening to him, like you're still like kids in school.
It's absolutely one of my favorite moments in the episode, and it pays off even more for me because sometime after that, years after that. My wife and I took a trip to Venice, and we're in St. Mark's Square, and there's a big store, the big sign, Bevilacqua, and I was like, I had never heard it. I'd never seen it or heard it anywhere else.
Mr. Bevilacqua was Jerry's real gym teacher at Massapequa High School. That's the story I got. That's the story I got because my father-in-law is from Massapequa, and he swears by it that Mr. Bevilacqua was a real gym teacher. I don't know if that came up on set at all. I don't know if they said that, but
no, but clearly also derived from Venetian stock.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing to see that there while you're in Italy.
Awesome.
That's incredible.
That's huge.
Like
So
synchronicity,
So that scene, the running scene, and it was all set up from like I remember I could picture you clearly in the diner saying, "You didn't beat me then, and you can't beat me now." Just delivered incredibly. So then we fast forward to the actual race. So I always wondered this, like the whole production of it. Like, were you guys actually running full speed? Like, I know they dubbed in
100%.
the music after, but I'm just curious, like how the whole race went about. It's just, and Jerry's face is just ridiculous, and
I
you
have to, I
push.
have to,
And you're yelling the
yes,
battle
I have to say several things about this. First of
Yeah.
all, like we didn't really talk about how to do it. We just like we're lined up next to each other, and I see Jerry starting to do some stretches. I'm like, oh, stretches, that's good. Oh yeah, I'll do some of those. Side note, I am the least flexible person on the planet. This is like this might as well be made out of steel cable. It's just like it doesn't stretch. It does not stretch. And so I look over at Jerry. They don't use it in this take because I think Jerry backed off this so that it didn't look ridiculous. But I assume he still is. He was like a yoga guy, right? And so when he bent over to stretch, he folded himself in half and put his head between his ankles. Like, grown men shouldn't be able to do that. That's nuts. And and then I'm gonna have to say this in a PG way. He's really fast. Jerry's
Oh,
a
really?
fast bastard. Oh my God. It was like I was absolutely, I mean, obviously he did get a head start,
Right.
but I gave it everything I had to catch up with him and didn't have a prayer. He just beat the pants off me. It was and did it every take. Oh my gosh. I did think I just want to beat him once. No.
Method. That's method right there too.
Was
Because
that about 20 yards, Don? Like, what was the actual distance?
I think, well, it looks shorter than it is because they're shooting at us, so it's foreshortened, right? It was about 50 yards.
Yeah, I mean, and that was kind of the first, they rarely did something like that, that whole Superman theme and kind of adding music. It's kind of never been done before in those first 5 years. So, listen, I enjoyed it. Seasons, we always debate kind of seasons on Seinfeld, but for my money, that episode in season 6, ranks up with any of them throughout the series for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
It brings so many of their themes together. George's architecture fantasy,
Right.
the Steinbrenner in it, the Superman thing.
It's a very well, their whole thing is, tie all 4 stories together, and that one it works so well. There's no, like you mentioned before about the rhythm of it. Even the episode itself, the rhythm of it, everything flows perfectly. Like, Kramer's stuff ties into George's stuff with the communism, ties into Lane's stuff with the communism, and at the end, the car backfires, driving George to.
And the deep reliance on physical comedy, but in a very Seinfeld way, in a very casual way. George picking up the phone, the old corded phone, and throwing it to him.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's a great.
And Jerry catching it and doing beautiful take. That was beautiful physical comedy. Or like Julia and Jason clinking glasses and him managing to like knock her drink all over her face just for no reason really, except that it's ridiculous and we got like that much more of a laugh out of it.
Right.
And the brilliant Julia, holy cow, what a physical actress. She found that trip at the end of the race where he runs to Lois and like knocks her out of the way.
Right. Yeah.
She found that in the moment because that wasn't in there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they were like, we're working it, and then he's like, run, and she was like, oh, you know what? And then she and then Jerry was like, oh, yeah, I can do that. I can help you with that. Yeah, and so then he like, but they discovered it very organically on the day.
Go ahead,
So yeah,
Ohio.
we find
That's
that
a
a,
great tidbit, Don. Thank you for that. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I didn't realize that.
we find that a lot. There's like ad libbing. I guess was there anything that like we've talked to a lot of guests. Some deleted scenes got cut. Was there anything that you did you wish got put in the episode, or was everything pretty much
No,
scripted to
everything
T?
was there. In fact, they I didn't realize this until I rewatched today. They did me a big favor. You know, it's Orson Welles said this about one of his movies, the Third Man. I don't know. So by the time I've entered, they've talked about my character so much that I'm already present to them, and that was absolutely the case with this.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's a good
They
point.
talked about Duncan off stage a bunch, so that the writers did a whole lot of work for me. You know, this sort of resentment and a guy who's never going to let something go, and I didn't have to play any of that. You
That's
know,
true.
all I
But you
What
did. You played it so well.
well, I mean,
what
it made it really easy for me because all I had to do was like, I mean, I think I think what I found for Duncan, the signature move was this like this pointing thing. It's like, you know, like this, you know, and which worked both like in the first scene and then in you couldn't beat me then you can't, you know,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
the
Right.
idea.
Right.
I didn't realize until I watched today. Didn't realize it. I do it throughout the episode. Like, okay,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you finished it with Mr. Belavaca. Like,
Yeah.
what do you got? Are you? I know it's it's muted, but like, were you actually saying something to him there?
oh, absolutely. I was saying, he cheated again. What's wrong with you? Why did you like?
Do you know? I was always curious about this. Do you know they're gonna when they do the editing and they actually air it, they're gonna slow mo that scene and all that stuff? Or you're playing it
No.
as if you have no. It doesn't matter to you, right? You're acting it out, and then whatever they do with it, it looks fun, especially with the knocking a lane down. Looks great in slow motion. I mean, the face Jerry makes, you yelling at him. It's
Oh,
such a
um,
classic scene.
yeah. And I'm
And you know
trying to
what's
think of
you know what's interesting too, Don, is this is a Christmas episode. Now,
right.
typical sitcom Christmas episodes are like, it's Christmas. This was like a side note, to the whole thing. And we actually did a thing this year on Christmas. We ranked all the Christmas episodes because everyone
Yeah.
loves Festivus, and we're actually kind of not fans of Festivus. We
Right.
put this up there. The red dot from season 2 is up there, or season 3. But this is a Christmas episode. Like, it's a big episode as far as like that time of year. The sitcoms usually try and go hard, and it's like the race is the most important thing, and it's like I love that
Well,
aspect.
the race and creeping communism,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
really
Which is
not
so
a Christmas
anti-Christmas that it's like, what?
exactly, exactly. I love the fact that and they even tied that into our storyline because they had Lois saying, of course he can fire me. He controls the means of production.
Yes, they slipped that. That's a great. That
Wow.
was great.
Wow.
Shows the means of reduction. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I choose not to race. Just
Exactly.
the scenes are just nonstop. I mean, and back to the George scene with you and him talking about losing his virginity that day. I mean, and your face was just, it's just classic. And what a high school, like, if you haven't seen someone in 20 years, you heard something like that. Like, it's just, you played that high school friend, high school nemesis, just perfect. I'd say, yeah, we think about Newman as the nemesis, but you're probably the number one. Like, we were a little intimidated before coming on with you, to be quite frank, Don.
Yeah, we
'cause
talked about it. We're always blown away because I guess, I mean, that speaks to your acting, obviously, but you're so good at, like, I don't know, I'm like, oh man, he's gonna have an edge to him. What are we gonna do? And
Well, I have to say, there's only been one job on television that I got and then went away, and I was supposed to play a really bad guy who at first presents completely innocuous, and I did the table read, and they said, you know what? I don't think this one. I don't think we're going to be doing this one. And the reason they gave me was and they spoke in the third person. So Don McManus is many things. Edge free is not one of them. And I was like, I'll take it. You know what? Honestly, on balance, I'll take that.
Yeah.
So yeah. I tend to bring that.
So Don, you mentioned you love the Steinbrenner piece. I'm just curious. You're a Yale grad. I think 1981. There's just a lot of crossover with the Mets. Did Ron Darling? Any run-ins with him? Were you guys buddies?
No. Did not know. No, do not know Ron Darling. But doing your homework there. Dude.
Well, we had to ask. Yeah, he
we're
he
trying
left
to Keith
Yale in
Hernandez on,
81.
so we're looking for any connection.
Yeah. I just love the shape of the Steinbrenner scenes, and I love that they copied that shape for the Castro scene.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a good time.
I mean, wow.
We asked, I think I forgot who we asked, but I was curious, was Larry like on set doing Steinbrenner's voice while the scene's on? Yeah. That's kind of cool. I think that he's there, doing that, not like dubbing it in later. He's actually there talking.
Well, I think they probably tuned it up later,
Okay.
But he had to give the actor, some of the rhythms of what he was saying, so that he could give them that shot from behind.
As far as the producing aspect, though, you're saying Larry you didn't find him to be too involved in, no notes with you, giving you any type of that sort of thing was more.
And that would have been, that's the right way to handle it. It would have been, he would have been stepping in front of Andy Ackerman.
Sure, but we've heard from others, other people that he obviously runs the show. He's a showrunner, but he lets the director direct. He lets the actors. He's not really on set doing his, getting his hands in dirty and that.
And yet, obviously, he could if he wanted to.
Right.
But
yeah, it sounds like he picks and chooses, and if there's a trust involved, obviously you tried out quite a few times, and they knew you were right for this role. So I'm guessing they trusted you with kind of the approach.
And also, this wasn't a live show, right? So that's a very different thing. Often, when you're doing a live sitcom and you get to tape night, and the showrunner has a brainstorm about how to fix a line or something, then either they'll send someone over to you, or sometimes he'll just walk over, or she'll just walk over and say, okay, do this, say it this way. And sometimes they'll want to say it in person because they want to give you a sense of what they're looking for in the line, right? But without an audience, that's that pressure, that engagement doesn't have to happen.
But Don, you were a fan of the show. I know you tried out a few times, but you were actually a fan of the show, right? Prior, like any favorite episodes top of mind, or?
Well, I mean, see, I don't know about you guys, but I think less in terms of episodes than I think in terms of characters and situations.
Right.
Like, Newman is. I mean, he's a hilarious guy. We did a play together. Wayne and I did a play together at the Public Theater in New York. Probably late 80s. It was a play called One of the Guys, and I didn't see Wayne for a long time, and he just obviously killed it in this show. He just found a character and just tore it up. So I think of Wayne. I think of the Soup Nazi. I don't know. It's been a while.
Because so you were on Seinfeld late '94. Shawshank was filmed prior to the Seinfeld, obviously, right?
That's correct.
I mean, what a year! I mean, so. Was it tough walking down the street that year from obviously the box office to then the #1 show on television? It must have just been an incredible time for you.
I'm a character actor. It's people generally, more now I'm more recognized, but just because I've done a lot of stuff and the accumulation of stuff
Right.
in people's heads. But back in the day, I was more likely to get, oh, did I go to school with you? You know, I mean, I'm familiar, but they were like, I can't really place it, you know. So no, if you're a character actor, you're in people's consciousness, but they're not really sure why.
Yeah, I think Seinfeld's a little different in that sense. We've talked to so many guest stars because because of how unselfish the main cast of Seinfeld was to let guest stars shine, and you kind of took that to a new level as a nemesis. But I think in the Seinfeld cultish world, like, yeah, you are
Oh, that's fantastic.
recognized.
I would
sure.
have I have no idea about that, but that's really nice. I like that because
Yeah, it's coming to Netflix
it's
soon, so I think there's going to be a whole new generation that are going to latch onto it, and it's going to start back up
so,
again.
that
Hopefully, if
well
these people know, I'm afraid these. We talked to some guest stars with like 20-year-old children who aren't into Seinfeld yet, and we're like, oh man, you gotta get them in there, but we'll see.
well, but that's interesting because that's a double-edged sword a lot because things are less allowed to be a part of their time than they used to be. I
Good
thought
point.
that was fascinating when Friends started rerunning, and this current generation started to look at what was done then through the eyes and the values of this generation, and going, nope, not having it. And when I
Yeah,
was watching this episode, watching the guy that owns the Chinese restaurant,
yeah,
he would never get away with that portrayal today. You know,
yeah.
even though he's Asian, like the sort of ESL, you know, not really being able to speak English
Right,
thing
right, right.
really wouldn't fly. You know, so I'm wondering how many of those things, how many artifacts there
Yes.
are in Seinfeld that just will jump out like sore thumbs when this new generation watches
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I'd
gonna
say
be interesting.
there's probably plenty of that, but the
Funny's
core
funny.
it's funny, but the core of the show, like to your point, like the high school nemesis, that's something that transcends time, and I think that rises above some of that. I don't want to
Hope
call that
so.
petty, but other stuff. We hope, but we'll see.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good
I
point
hope
though.
so. I mean,
I mean,
I
it's an
hope.
artifact of the time, though. I mean, it encapsulates. I always like to say, the last episode of Seinfeld is the cell phone walk and talk bit. That's the finale. They're starting to sort of talk about the etiquette of what it's like with a cell phone, right? So that ended
Right.
an entire generation of how we lived our lives and encapsulated it all as an artifact amongst itself.
Well, and then there was like quite famously the way Seinfeld handled uh, being gay. Not that
Right.
there's
Not there's
anything
anything
wrong
wrong
with
with
that.
Right.
Like, holy cow!
Amazing, amazing. They
We
handled I mean,
eat.
they handled everything though. We go over this when we do all this. I mean, they handled everything gay. I mean, the contest episode. I mean,
Oh,
everything
yeah.
they handled perfectly. Like on network television, it was incredible.
Well, listen,
But go ahead.
Netflix is dropping $500 million to showcase it, so it's a big bet that I think they believe in. So we'll see. We'll see if the younger generation kind of clings to it.
Well, God, I hope so. I mean, I
Yeah.
hope that we never really get to the point where we just throw something in the garbage because it doesn't fit with what we're saying right now. That would be a real shame, you
Yeah.
know. Uh, I mean, and if you think of the art we would have to lose if we went through some sort of Bolshevik, it's got to conform to what we're doing right now, or we're going to tear it down. That would be horrible.
Right.
Well, Don, this has been a blast, man. From San
This is
Diego
great,
to
man.
Yale to Mr. Bellavacqua's class.
to Italy
it's
with Bevilacqua.
it's been a treat.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for the trip down memory lane, Don.
I had a great time, guys. Very
This
nice.
was great. We really appreciate it, Don.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you so much, man.
Talk to you guys later.
All right. Thank
Cheers.
you.